All right.
and especially
We are
yes.
up there.
I'm not sure my internet can handle me like
Well, we're going to give it a shot.
being
And
live and watching a live.
oh
I'm not sure
man.
I'm not sure your internet's going to be able to handle what happens in this episode. Are you
Well,
you
can
guys
your can
you
your
guys
internet handle getting starched? Because that's
are you
what's
guys
about to
sure
happen.
that you actually want this episode to go down? Because like, are you guys comfortable? I know. Are you guys comfortable?
I'm comfortable with it. I even brought my lacrosse ball just in case.
Dang.
All right, here we go. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You are actually on our very first live No Kidding podcast. So if you're listening to this afterwards, you missed a chance to ask questions and answers. So the way we're going to run this is I've got the one and only Trent, and I've got the one and only Taylor Starch. We're here to get starched. Um, so we will talk about strength and conditioning for however long it goes, and then we will do a Q&A. So if we don't get to your questions right away, don't worry about it. I'm sure there's going to be a load. We were actually talking about this before we hopped on the live. So before we get started, though, as you guys know, we always talk about our sponsors. So you guys check out Hoist. I don't know if you can see the shirt or not. Check out Hoist. They've got IV level hydration. Go to their website, drinkhoist.com, and use the promo code One's Ready to get your hydration on. All right, Taylor. This
Oh
is,
boy!
yeah. Oh,
Oh
yeah.
boy! It's gonna
So,
be a treat.
yeah, I mean, hey, we had to bring you back for round three, and I'm sure there'll be a subsequent 4 and 5. But we got a lot of traction on your running and your overall redefining of fitness kind of thing. So, hot take, weight training, go.
I mean, I don't. I don't know if people are kind of prepared for this. I mean, this is one of those podcasts that you're not going to be able to go back once you go. But I'm going to throw out a disclaimer right now. I'm about to say some stuff that people have probably never thought of. They're probably going to disagree with, but I love one of the quotes that if you and I agree on everything, one of us is unnecessary. So I'm going to talk about strength, and I might step on some toes, and that's a big toe mobility reference right there. You guys know how I do. But strength is crazy. If you ask 100 people what strength is, some people might talk about a deadlift. Others might talk about calisthenics like a gymnast doing an Olympic ring routine or Ryan or cross. Some people might say it would be selection and rucking with 2 hours of sleep. Other people might say it's mental fortitude or spiritual strength. Strength is kind of this crazy thing that is just part of humanity. And if we look back throughout history, humans have done strong things. But when it comes to physical strength, we've been doing strong things for a long time. It's not new. So I'm not going to come on here and say stuff like, you know what, if we squat, hinge, push, and pull and do some loaded carries, you're going to get stronger. That's obvious. We know what works. But I want to kind of talk to you about what strength is, which is kind of a biological phenomenon. And most people starting this podcast or listening in are going to think of how much do you bench, bro? How much do you deadlift? Specifically on a trap bar, because somehow that's magically healthier for every single person. That was a shot.
I hate the trap bar.
Shots fired. Or how much do you squat? And I know that those are standard measurements of strength, but I think we need to take a step back and think about what the human body just cares about first and foremost. And it's actually survival, right? The number one goal of your body, of your central nervous system, is just to survive. That is it. It doesn't want to spend energy. It doesn't want to get killed. It doesn't want your knee to get blown out. It just wants to survive and thrive. So what we need to understand about that statement is going to dictate everything I'm going to talk about next. And are you sure you guys want to continue? I'm serious when I say this. People are going to probably think I'm batshit crazy. When I start explaining how I go about getting people strong, they're not going to believe it. And then it's going to take drinking the Kool-Aid and then realizing, SpaghettiOs. So are you guys sure you want to go down this road?
I only
I'm
have one
not
request.
over-exaggerating.
You have to say, I'm the science.
Oh.
That's my only request.
Always being controversial. Always being controversial. So, okay. We said the goal is survival. So what we have to understand is anything to our system that is seen as potentially damaging, right? Because remember, survival. Anything that is seen as potentially damaging is shut down, limited, or inhibited. And that is stuff that is real threats and stuff that is perceived threats. So it doesn't have to be a real threat. Obviously, if I break my ankle, that's a pretty real threat. But it can be a perceived threat as well. And our body can pull on the parking brake, there's a reference to our earlier podcast, and start limiting and inhibiting. And I'm not just talking about muscles. So here's the statement where everything is going to change. Strength, which I said is a biological phenomenon. Stop thinking about how much bar is on or weight is on a barbell. That's an elementary understanding of strength. The key point you have to understand is strength is initially perceived as a threat to the human body. Now, okay,
I'm thinking about that for a second.
Through this. And
The stimulus, not the actual strength.
Strength. So let me expand upon that. So
Okay.
When we think about it, we don't contract our muscles at 100%. That's not going to happen. In fact, if you did innervate your muscles fully, muscle would rip from bone. Muscle would rip from ligament and rip off the bone. We see this when people get struck by lightning. Sometimes there's a phenomena where someone gets struck by lightning and they're found a few feet or a set distance from when they get struck by lightning. Their system and muscles innervate 100% and they express so much physical strength that they're found in another location, whether it's a short distance or even something that's unbelievable, except in lore. So our central nervous system limits our strength for our own good. That's why it's estimated that only around 30 to 40% of our motor units, which innervate and flex and contract muscles, are being used on any hard effort. Now, they've done research and they've said maybe Olympians can tap into the numbers will be arbitrary and differ depending on the study or the person or the guru, 40, 50, 60%. But I'm sure you guys think about that in terms of when your mind says you're 40% done, you're not even close to being done, okay?
Yep.
So that means that in us right now, so even when you do your max deadlift today and you feel like you're at your limits, your system is actually pulling on the parking brakes, which means there is anywhere between 40, 50, 60, maybe 70% for a novice of extra strength contained in you right now. Which means, Peaches, you ready? You're going to get all excited. You are a physical superhuman. Now, the ego's going to blow up. Trent's like, wait a second.
What about me?
Everyone watching this is a physical
I already thought that
superhuman.
about myself, so.
Have you ever heard of a story of someone getting stuck or trapped in a burning car, like a grandma, and she rips the car door off and saves her kids? Or a guy is running in Moab, gets trapped under a boulder, and bench presses it off? Did he do a 18-week bench cycle to be able to express that strength, even though that boulder was 800 pounds and would be a world record deadlift for his age group and weight group? So
now I get the dying. I get the dying reference.
Those have been recorded throughout human history. Now, a novice or someone who's not thinking deep enough will say, oh, it's just adrenaline. Well, did that adrenaline not use the same muscles, tissue, fascia, ligament, and system that you have already there? So that means, what does this mean? That means that strength is not about effort. And here's where all the statements are going to confuse people, and the snowball has gone downhill. We cannot stop it now. So when it comes to strength, it is about a conversation, not a confrontation with your nervous system. It's about convincing your nervous system or your body to let you have more of what you already have. If you've ever heard someone say, I want to get stronger, or a strength coach says, I'm gonna build these guys as deadlifts up. That build implies effort. Your body will adapt. So when you think about it, when we think about the way most people train, and we talked about it, right? What's their measure of success in a workout? Failure. It's failure, right?
Failure or PR, yeah.
It's a receipt of badass. They take every set to failure, or that basically if they don't fail, they increase the weight until they get there. They train above that 85% of rep max because that's what all the books in strength and conditioning history and masters and all that say that you have to train above, right? You have to push your limits. You have to, what are the statements? Push your limits, train insane or remain the same. That's a right there. Nothing ever great came from your comfort zone. Give it 110%. I'm gonna challenge you guys to think differently right now about failure. And once again, strength is a conversation, not a confrontation with your nervous system. Now, I'm talking about strength, not about building muscle, which I'll probably hit on at some point. But if you guys need to stop me or interrupt me, please do. Let's use an example. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't necessarily. I want you to continue on this thought process, but I want to make sure that we hit a kind of, because one of the questions that we get is, hey, these dudes and dudettes that are in high school or just starting out, may or may not be great at running, but they want to know. Some of them don't necessarily have the kind of short, stocky frame like I do. Maybe they're a long, cylindrical, skinnier type person. So I, should those people be Jack and Steel, or it's a complete different thought process than what you're going. So I definitely want you to continue down this process, but I want to make sure that we kind of hit that.
Yeah. So let's start to use an example, and then I'll get even deeper. We can go as deep as we want to. So let's play a game. We've got two lifters. Lifter A is going to do, I'm going to make this very simplistic, even though I know most people might get a little more complex on this. Let's do an example. Lifter A is going to do the traditional strength method. They're going to train to failure. They're going to push their limits. They're going to do everything that every single person watching this podcast is doing, which is trying to force their limits. And let's use an example of 3x10. I hate to use it. It's the most common set and rep scheme in the world. I could use an example of Bill Starr's 5x5 method, which I know everyone's hit a heavy 5x5, but let's use the 3x10. Okay, lifter A is going to perform a 3x10. Let's say we're doing a chest press and my 1 rep max is 100 pounds. Okay, so I can do 1 rep of a dumbbell chest press at 100 pounds. So if we think about all of strength and conditioning, all of the stuff that you guys have seen, you probably get a workout and probably says, okay, today you're going to lift at 85% of your rep max, and you're going to do this many reps for this many sets, and generally it's either the same weight, or B generally increases the weight, or if you don't fail or you get tired, that's where we're going to go. So let's say that we take someone's like 75% or 75% rep max, okay? That's about the weight we could do maybe 10 reps with. Cool? So I can press 75 pounds 10 times. That's lifter A. Let's think about this. So lifter A is going to do 3x10 of dumbbell chest press at 75 pounds because that is their 10 rep max, and the workout says do 3 sets of 10. Doesn't that sound like every workout you can ever think of? Mm-hmm. Because it's based on rep max and percentages, and I'm not saying that stuff is bullshit, but it kind of is. And I know that's really clickbaity, but largely doesn't matter. So let's think about this. So if I use what's called rate of perceived exertion, which is how hard I perceive the set. Remember how we talked about threats are going to limit or inhibit or shut down our strength because the central nervous system wants to survive. So rate of perceived exertion is important because that is dealing with our system's sense of survival. So if I take 75 pounds, which I said I could do 10 times, and I do set number 1. 1, 2, 3. When I get past 5, it gets a little bit harder. 7, 8, 9's really hard. And then on my 10th rep, I finish the rep, but I can't do any more weight if it's my true 10 rep max. If it's not my true 10 rep max, obviously that doesn't count. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. Are you sure you want to continue? I promise that you have to think through this. So let's go.
It anyway, so whatever.
I am. No one will believe this. So on the RPE of lifter A, I haven't even talked about lifter B yet, who might be someone I train. Lifter A, what's the RPE of set 1? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being max, 1 being
8 or 9 or 10.
It's a 10.
It's a 10?
They-
I mean, if he maxed out
they
all of his
can't
reps,
make-
it's, yeah.
the last rep is a maximum. It's 10. They cannot do any more. They have reached 10. You can't do more. If it's a 10, you can't do any more reps because you're at your maximum. 10 is max, and I can only do max once. So that 10th rep is a 1 rep max. Now, ready? That person clearly, let's be fair. Most people would say, "Oh, that wasn't that tough. I already hit 10 reps. I'm going to increase the weight by 1 size," or if they're crazy, 2. Let's play the game. They kept the same weight, 75 pounds. They do set number 2. Now, if they rested appropriately, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, they would be able to then do the second set. But here's the problem. Your 10 rep max is 1 set of 10, not 3 sets of 10. So in set 2, they go 1, 2, 3. And how many reps do you think they're going to get in that second set if they lifted the same 75 pounds? Are they getting 10 reps?
7 or 8.
No way. They're not getting 10.
Trent, I agree with you. If probably 7 or 8, depending on the lifter, the motivation, the experience.
Ask me how I know. I definitely don't work out like that because that would be stupid.
Right? And what's the person thinking right now? I'm struggling. I'm failing. I'm pushing my limits. I'm building strength. And that's the way like 99% of strength coaches, people on the internet think about strength. Okay? What about the third set? Man, that's getting uglier. But let me ask about the second set. What's the RPE on set number 2?
10.
It's 10 again. They failed again.
Regardless of reps, it's 10.
Well, they failed. So they got to 10. Because if it wasn't 10, they could get more reps. They are at their limits. Because if they weren't at their limits, they could keep going. So when they get to rep 8, it is once again a 10 RPE in terms of the set. If it's a true, remember, this is all based on if it's a true 10 rep max, tested, and it's legit. Obviously, people are going to play the, well, what if it's that? This is an example. All right, set 3. Are they getting 7 to 8 reps? No. Maybe 6 to 7, but probably at this point, their system's pretty freaking fatigued because they've just done 2 rep maxes, and it's a true rep max, not a, I went hard in the gym today, boys, rep max. They're at their limits. So then in the third set, so all 3 sets were perceived by the person to be a maximal effort. It was perceived by their nervous system to be a maximal effort. Their tissues, a maximal effort. And that person got how many reps? Let's say 10, let's 8, and then let's say 6. So we're at 24 of an intended 30, and the workout was a 10 out of 10 in terms of intensity. Thanks for sticking with me. I promise this gets good. So let's get to lifter B, who might be someone I train. And I made sure I'm on track. Okay, let's go like this. Let's take that same lift. So every strength and conditioning book, everyone watching this would say if you're not training above like 70, 80, 90% of your max, you're not getting stronger, right? So let me play a game. Let's say I was doing 30 pounds at the dumbbell chest press. People would be like, that's ridiculous. Okay, what if instead of doing 3 sets of 10, I did 25 sets of 3? Stick with me.
Okay.
25 sets of 3, which is going to give me 75 reps versus 30. Okay, I'm at 30% of my max. So I press the dumbbell 3 times. What's my RPE?
30%? 3?
Yeah, right. Probably somewhere at 30%. That's why I picked 100 pounds, right? It's a 30% out. It's 30 out of 100, 30%. And this is all arbitrary, and this is just a discussion to open your mind.
This is also public math, too. There's a lot of people watching.
Oh,
I'm sitting here doing public math. So.
I'm a strength coach. I count 135, 225, 315,
exactly.
405, 495. Trust me. That's how I count.
Yeah.
Okay? Ready? When I go to set number 2, what's my RPE?
3.
Because I do another 3 reps. Basically the same.
Yeah.
By the time I'm done with 25 sets, has my RPE gone up? For sure, a little bit. What do you think I'm probably going to end that workout with? Maybe a 5. Let's call it maybe a 5 out of 10. Especially if I'm resting.
Yeah.
Would I need to rest as long between sets? No
Oh, I
chance.
hope not.
No.
Why? It feels like a 3 out of 10. Does that feel like I'm even stimulating, annihilating, or getting the receipt of failure and badass? No
Hey,
chance.
your heart rate's probably not even going up.
People
Well,
are
chemically,
ready.
you're
This is
not
what
blowing
people-
that stuff out.
People are calling me crazy. Okay, so when I finish the workout, I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions. Okay? When I finish the workout, what was my RPE that were kind of maybe it sneaked up to 6, but let's say it got up to 6. I think that'd be an overshoot personally because I've done these type of workouts and this is my philosophy I've used for years. Let's say it's a 6. When I finish my workout, that's a 6 out of 10. So I perceive my workout to be how much easier than the other person. 40%.
Probably a lot easier.
Yeah.
It felt 40% easier. How many reps did I get?
A lot more.
A lot more, okay? So this is where it's going to get interesting. If I'm thinking about the number one law of strength training is progressive overload, meaning we must progressively overload tissue or we must put more weight on the bar, more intensity. You guys know that. If we don't progress in overload, we don't change, okay? When lifter A goes to do that workout again, could they do it the next day?
Yeah.
No chance. No.
Oh, you're talking about lifter A.
Lifter A, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no.
So think about who's going to have a longer recovery time, lifter A or B? A.
A.
So let's say they tried to do that workout 2 days later. No way, because they're probably at peak soreness and they went to max. So they probably have to wait till 3 days. When they do that on Thursday, say they did that on Monday, do that Thursday. What's going to be the typical solution? Would they go up in weight? Yeah, it's a strength program. You put more weight on the bar, you grab more dumbbells. So now we go again and they do 3 sets of 10. Is it harder or easier than the workout earlier in the week? It's the same. It's a 10 out of 10.
Same.
Do you think they're getting more or less reps if they're forcing themselves? So who's going to have the longer recovery time? Lifter A.
Lifter
Who
A.
is going to be closer to injury?
Lifter A.
A. Who is going to have more room to progressively overload? Lifter B. If you were going to jump over a hurdle, wouldn't you want enough space so you can get a little head start and a little momentum?
Mm-hmm.
So lifter B has the best chance of applying overload. The rest periods take longer. Lifter B can finish 75 reps in probably 10 to 15 minutes, when lifter A is probably taking 20 to 30 minutes to get 30 reps when you're getting triple the volume. When I go to do that workout, could I do that workout if I was lifter B 2 days later? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because why? It was a 3 out of 10. So where are we at in 16 weeks with lifter A? Do you think they're burnt out?
Yes.
Yes. Do you think they probably have injuries, nags, and tweaks from all their trash joints that they forgot to address?
Yeah, there's probably some ligament issues, some tears maybe.
Whose hormones are probably a mess? Lifter A. So are you guys starting to catch a little bit about what I'm saying? Now, someone's just like, so you're telling me to do lots of sets and 30% weight? No, that's just one example. But imagine, in 12 weeks later, where do you think lifter B is at with their weights? They're way up from where they started. So isn't that called progress? Where's lifter A? Smashing their head into a wall and hoping it moves. Right? So if I go to my neighbor's house, this is my famous example. If anyone from prep or SWIC remembers this, if I was going to go to my neighbor's house, she's a sweet old lady, she's 80 years old, to borrow milk. Which strategy is going to be more effective? I go up to her house, I knock on the door and say, hey, Sally, how's it going? She's like, oh, it's going great. How are you? Oh, come on, sit down. We have a conversation. And then after a while, she's asking me about work and stuff like that. And then I say, you know what? She's like, is there anything can I help you with? I was like, yeah, I was wondering if I could borrow milk. She's like, oh, no worries at all. Why? We had a conversation. She trusts me. I'm her next door neighbor. I'm a nice guy, okay? Option 2. I go over to Sally's house. I knock on the door. I bust through the door. I pull a gun to her head. I say, Sally, give me the goddamn milk, Sally. And she's screaming. She's like, oh my God, don't do anything. I'll swear I'll do it. I'm like, give me the milk, Sally. I walk over, I get the milk, and I walk back. Boom, take that, Sally. That's a confrontation. That's the best word you've ever heard, right?
I gotta say, I'm more attracted to the thing that you're preaching against in both scenarios.
Yeah. So it's a conversation, not a confrontation, because here's where the magic changes. If I improve my 10 rep max or my 20 rep max, so say I was able to do 10 reps at 75 pounds. If I'm now able to do 20 reps at 75 pounds, is my 10 rep max my 10 rep max anymore?
No.
No.
It is what? My 10 rep max is higher. So if you've improved any rep max, 20 rep max, which would be considered endurance training or rehab training, if you've improved any rep max to a significant extent, significance extent is the key word here, right? We got to be reasonable. You have now improved every rep max to a reasonable extent.
It makes sense.
If I improve my 30 rep, if I improve my rep max at 30% of my rep max, and I can now do more with 30%, is now my 35% not more, and my 40%? Now, people are going to call me out and say, well, Taylor, to lift really heavy weights like a 500-pound deadlift, don't you actually have to get... Well, yes, of course, everything must head towards a peak or accumulate. But the problem is most people are chasing the peak. You don't need... Why are you going after your max? Your only concern should be raising your max. Are you here to test your limits or to expand your limits? Every workout you spend finding your max, which we just found out most people are doing every set because they didn't realize if you are failing and hitting a 10 out of RPE, yes, biologically there might be some small differences based on the position, the weight, the force, the gravity, the eccentric stress, all of that. But in that moment, that 10 rep max works to your system. So if your time is supposed to be spent improving your max, why are you trying to find it? Progress is best made in strength training, not your mind, not your business, without the presence of limits. Because my only concern is raising my max. It's not testing it. In every workout you spend finding your max is 2 to 3 to 4 you could have spent raising it. So one more time, if you've improved any rep max, you're 40%, you're 50%, it shifts everything over. Same. So what if I told you guys that I was able to get to 40 strict chin-ups by only training 1 rep? Because if I improve my 1 rep max, is not my body weight max go up? If I can deadlift 1,000 pounds, how many reps can I do with 100?
Fair number.
So I see people trying to get their pull-ups up by seeing how many pull-up sets they can do to failure. Have you ever thought about not failing and progressing and not trying to find your limits, but trying to expand your limits and staying away from the threat response? So when we get to failure, do you think we're threatening our system? Yeah. And I can take this even deeper, but I'm sure I've talked way too much and I haven't let you guys in on the party. But are you starting to see are you starting to see the difference? Because it's not about like, oh, nothing great ever comes from a comfort zone. That might be great, cool. But how about instead of leaving your comfort zone, you get your comfort zone out of you?
Yeah. So
this is for strength training only, people.
I think though it is making sense to me, and for the people out there, if you're confused like I am because I'm a dummy, the aerobic running, right, and setting up that foundation. Like you're not working on maybe maxing out your 1.5 mile or your 3 mile run while you're doing your aerobic running, right? So I think the way I would look at this is without this foundation of strength or aerobic conditioning and all this other stuff, you're never really gonna change what you're gonna be able to do as your max, right? And so when we're talking about not chasing that peak, like if I go out there and run 1.5 miles every day as fast as I can, am I really gonna get that much faster, or is it efficient? Instead of building that foundation like you're talking about, which I think is what we're talking about, and then moving up, keeping that work capacity and not having to like spend 4 days recovering.
This is not capacity. It's not about endurance. I'm talking about the biological phenomena of strength. Some people are going to say, Taylor, you're not strong because you don't bench. That's okay. That's an easy kill right there. But once again, if you judge a fish's ability to climb a tree, it's going to spend its whole life thinking it's stupid. That's an Einstein quote. So I changed it to say, if you judge an endurance athlete by their ability to bench press, it's going to spend its whole life thinking that he's weak. So the whole point is strength is a biological phenomena, but people are thinking about this in terms of their measure of success is failure. And think about it like curfew. I think this will wrap it up nicely because people are still probably sifting through this, and it took me years. In fact, this has taken me 10 years to sort through in my head. Because when I first heard it and started to delve into it, the first thought is like, this Taylor, this kind of bullshit. And also because this is anti-ego training. And we know that
exactly. That's what I was thinking. Ego.
The number one thing that we all have to combat. Pride made the devil fall. So when it comes to all of us, people hate this, and people will say that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That's not true. Here's this study that says you can't get stronger there. But they're not thinking in terms of what is the number one goal of the human body, survival. If you're holding your breath underwater, what's the only thing you're thinking about? Oxygen, survival. So if I think about curfew, did you guys have curfew growing up? I actually did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Strength training is like curfew. So when I grew up, my parents, when I was in early high school, were like, hey, go out. You can go out to 9. Don't go out any later or else there will be consequences. So I actually was the nerd. I was the band nerd. I was training at USA Cycling at the time. I didn't really go out and party scene. I'm sure people can tell.
What?
Dude, I'm not a partier, but I am a DJ. Plot twist. I am a DJ. So think about it. What's the better strategy to get my curfew raised? Do you think it was sneaking out and going to parties? Now, some people do that, and they get away with that maybe for a few months. And then all of a sudden, your parents get a call, and they say, hey, do you know that sneaking out and partying? And then they're like, oh, really? Or you do something stupid, or you push your curfew, and then you're at a party drinking, and the cops come, and then you're locked up. So now think, if I came back for curfew at 8:30, my parents were like, great job, awesome. And if I did that over a long period of time, my parents started to trust me more. If they started to trust me more, my parents said, you've done a great job. We're going to let you stay out till 10 now. I didn't force that limit. I earned the trust of my parents, and they moved that limit for me. And it was not about effort, because there's lots of people that work out and get sweaty, tired, and sore, and they are not strong. They cannot show me any feats of strength, any feats of endurance. And I am no legendary person of strength, but I have been able to achieve some stuff in strength training that I believe is decently impressive. So think about curfew. What happens to the person who breaks curfew? Eventually they get caught, unless they are incredibly smart. They have a good game plan. But you're going to get caught. And what happens when you get caught? You get grounded. Doesn't that sound like strength training?
I feel personally attacked by everything you've said today. Everything that you've said is just a personal attack towards me and my ego, and I don't like it, Taylor.
I woke up and chose violence, and you're the first person I thought of. Even to this point. So if we think about curfew, there was a couple times I remember watching. I went to go see the Two Towers, and my parents were like, "Hey, when does the movie start? When does it end?" And they're like, "You're not going to be able to get back in time." I'm like, "No, I'm good. And I got back like 5 minutes before. And guess what? Even though I was within curfew, my parents were what? Disappointed because they thought I was going to break it. So, strength training is, I call it curfew theory, and it's a conversation, and it's about earning the trust of your system. And we can do that at the internal level, because all movement is created internally and goes into the external environment. So I could divvy into this, because remember how we were talking about if you have poor joint health, the stuff people say that they want to work on, they're like, #burn the boats. And then they're like, oh, you want me to hold a 5-minute couch stretch? And then they're like, nope, I'm just going to stick with the softball, right? So your external strength, this is really important. And this is what no one in the strength and conditioning industry is talking about. They're still saying the same thing since the 1980s. And hey, the kettlebell swing or the RDL is good for your hamstrings. That's elementary stuff. That's stuff we've been doing for 40 years. Let me take you guys into the future here. So your external strength training or a deadlift, or all these movements that you want to produce strength or show and demonstrate your strength are all a byproduct of your internal environment. And I'm going to give you 4 right here. Your strength emerges from your central nervous system, which is the one that's deciding whether it's a threat or not. Your joint space, we started to go into the first episode. So how healthy your joints are, how much space they have to explore movement and load, your quality of your muscle, and your quality of your connective tissue. Now, if you think about those 4 things combining almost like the Power Rangers Megazord, where they all combine in the Power Ranger. Come on, baby. The best Power Ranger is Peaches.
I think it was the green one, but I was a little bit after that, right?
There's
Is it
a
the green one?
Look it up,
green
kids.
Power Ranger
I don't know. My brother was all about Power Rangers. I was like a little bit past that.
So if you think about it, as I hate to say, it's such a cheesy example, but it's easy to think of. And if you think about those all combining, they create the Megazord, which is your external feat of strength, whether that's a deadlift, a heavyweight pull-up, a stone lift. All 4 of those combine to produce what you're seeing in the external environment. Now, here's the problem, is most strength and conditioning is only focusing on muscle, because that's all people talk about is, here's how you get your glutes stronger. Here's how you get your lats stronger. And then most of strength and conditioning, because we're failing, is what? Threatening and burning out your nervous system. So of the 2 of the 4, we are really good about, in special warfare and soft operators, pro athletes, about smashing the nervous system. Think about it when we have that confrontation. Think about those hard workouts where you're forcing your limits, you're pushing it. That is frying your nervous system. It's not wrong, but the context is, and the way we're thinking about progress is not the ultimate measure. And then your muscle, think about eccentrics, isometrics, and all that jazz. We're focusing on muscle. No one's focusing on joint space or joint health, and no one's focusing on connective tissue. So if we were all 3 with equal arm length holding up a log at old school INDOC or combat control school, let's say there was a 4th person, okay? We're all the same height, because I know Peaches.
That's all I could think of.
I knew either you were going to address it, either you guys were going to address it, or somebody in the chat was going to address it.
I can jumping at the camera down. So imagine we all were equals in terms of arm length and all that. So one of us was the central nervous system, who is kind of the governor, so they're kind of more of the bigger boss. One other person is the joint space, or the joint itself. I call it the capsule, the joint. Then the 3rd person represents all the muscle tissue in the body. We call that red stuff. And then the 4th person on the log is the connective tissue. Now, that log itself is the feat of strength, So say it's a 500-pound deadlift. So what do most people do? They train their muscles, and they get them stronger. And guess what? If the person who's representing the muscle gets stronger, can we lift a heavier log together? Because we all combine to create the external feat of strength or produce the strength. Does that start to make a little sense now?
Yes.
So here's what I want you to think. Let's say the person who represents muscle can handle 1,000 pounds of force, but the person who's connective tissue can only handle 500 pounds of force. And we're all holding that 1,000-pound log. What's the muscle doing? It's producing enough force to handle that. What's happening to the?
It's gonna pop.
It's gonna blow. It's gonna blow it out. Think about how many ACL injuries, Achilles injuries you see in pro sports. Do you think they're focusing on joint space and connective tissue? Hell no. They're only concerned about doing high-level CNS. So central nervous system drills would be like a heavy clean and jerk. That's super stimulating to the nervous system. And then they're building muscle or doing glute training, hamstring, abs. So those 2 guys are getting stronger, so the log they can hold overhead is getting heavier. What's happening to the other 2? They're getting ignored and neglected, and no one's thinking about them, because the only measure of success is how heavy of a log people are lifting, which is an external environment, and no one's thinking about the internal environment dictates how much we can do in the external, and that's what strength training is actually about, is the inside out, and that's how we're getting stronger.
So I have a question.
This is going off the rails. Right?
No, everything you're saying is making sense. Every time I've injured
Yeah.
myself and I've done a lot of rehab work and low rep or lower weight work to get myself healthy again, I find that my problem is once that tends to work really well and I feel really good once I've been doing that stuff for, like you said, about 12 weeks. My problem is once I start to feel strong again and healthy, I fall right back into the same
You
pattern
abandon
again.
it. What's the first thing people do when they hurt their shoulders? They start doing loaded rotations.
Yeah.
And then once it stops hurting, because pain is the
Yeah.
only measure of success in rehab, we won't get into that. But so think, they start trying to get their shoulder to be a better shoulder, and then once it stops hurting, they go back into the same environment with the same functioning shoulder, and they wonder why, because if pain decreases performance, then you have to, if you got injured at level 77 shoulder, you need to get your shoulder to level 90. But what happens is when people when they hurt their connective tissue, when they get pain and they get an injury, so they drop down in terms of capacity, and then they just get rid of pain and they get back to where they were. Well, where you were before wasn't good enough. And guess what? You're probably going and failing all the time. And now to throw out this, because I think people are about to probably pull out their pitchforks and stakes and want to burn me.
No, not right now. I'm reading the chat right now, and nobody's hating on
in
you.
terms of failure is like fire. In terms of, if you put a fire in a fireplace, you can have s'mores, and it's one of the greatest things on the planet. A fire in a dry forest that is not well maintained and not healthy can burn down an entire city and, in fact, hundreds of thousands of acres. Failure is part of training, and training should incorporate failure, but it's more a driver of hypertrophy. For those who don't know, that's building lean mass. Now, why is failure more about hypertrophy? And this is kind of not as much about strength, but when I fail, we said the body cares about survival, right? So when I fail, when we go back to the cardio lesson, when I go at high intensity, I strip oxygen from the muscle because I'm flexing and trapping blood. So when I do that pump, you know, the pump, I'm a cop, you idiot, like Arnold, right? By the way, the best Arnold quotes are from the Batman Forever, like where he's like, "What killed the dinosaurs, Batman? The Ice Age." I had to throw that out there. That's a hashtag Mr.
So
Freeze
bad.
reference. Trent should know what that means. I'm outrageous. So when I go to true failure, and I'm talking, if you hear the legendary bodybuilders, they say it's the final couple reps that actually put on muscle, right? Assuming your diet's in track. Well, what happens is when oxygen is no longer available in the muscle, which we talked about in the cardio workout, I am now stimulating lots of fibers, and I'm starting to get lots of activation. Well, those last couple reps are going to tell my system, hey, you're not good enough. If we do this, you're going to die and you won't survive. So this failure drives hypertrophy because it tells our system, yo, if you don't put on lean mass, that saber-toothed tiger is going to kill you. So actually, an increase in mass is a response to a threat to the system. So when we train to failure, failure is actually incredible for stimulating hypertrophy, which in rehab settings or the right context is phenomenal, amazing, and awesome. But we are talking about getting strong. So if you come to me and say, I want to be able to do 20 pull-ups for my pass test. Well, I bet you most people, like I said, are probably going to do like, I'm going to see how many pull-ups I can do. Okay, first set, I got 14. Second set, I got 10. You're failing. Like, isn't your measure of success? Because remember, it's not about effort. It's about a conversation. And it's about numerical progress, because I can put a lot of effort into workout and not get physically stronger. And if I'm not getting stronger, I need to take a look at my internal environment, which would be my nervous system. Am I frying it? My joint space, am I taking care of it? My muscle tissue, do I have enough of it? If I have enough muscle mass, why am I driving failure? I don't need hypertrophy. I actually probably need to get efficient with the stuff I already have, which means I don't fail and I stay within curfew. And then connective tissue. People are going to say, Taylor, how'd you bias connective tissue? The answer is when we're not moving. So you guys know isometric work. Isometric work when we're not moving is going to bias connective tissue in heavy eccentrics. That's going to be the time under tension. So if we're spending like 2 minutes plus on an exercise, we're going to get biased connective tissue, especially when we're doing an isometric, where we're flexing and not moving, and then a proper eccentric. Now, here's my bug with eccentric training. When people hear eccentrics, they think, oh, if I squat down 4 seconds, pause, and then squat up 1, that's eccentric training. That's tempo training. To do a proper eccentric, you actually have to do so much weight that you can't get the weight back up. So that's another story. But are you guys starting to see kind of the big picture here? Remember, this is my philosophy. There's many roads to Rome, but they all of them have to involve progressive overload. But most people are doing it trying to get the log heavier, but they're not trying to get the people on the log who are the weakest links heavier.
No, it's exactly right. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I do it. I do it squatting all the time.
Your internal environment's always going to be the parking brake. It's never the external lift. You can't lift a weight. You can't lift by trying to lift weights. You can't lift. And if you're trying to lift your 10 rep max for 3 sets, you can't lift it. Is your 1 set of 10 rep max. It's not your 3 sets of 10 rep max. And that is because we're trying to push our limits. But progress, when it comes to strength training, in my humble opinion, that most people are going to burn me at the stake for, is best made without the presence of limits. Because when you set a limit, when you go to failure, you have told your body, this is where I'm going to die. This is where I'm going to be in trouble. So it starts setting perceived limits before that. So if 75 pounds is where I fail, what do you think my nervous system is doing at 65 pounds? It's starting to pull on the parking brakes internally because it says 75 pounds is where I'm going to die, and I don't want the saber tooth to kill me. So when you start failing and failing and failing, you are set. When it comes to strength training, you are literally telling your system to start putting roadblocks that are internal, that are going to limit, inhibit, and stop your nervous system from expressing more strength that you already had. You already have the strength to lift every weight you've never lifted, but it's your internal environment that's holding you back, and the trust of your nervous system to express that strength, because you cannot progress yourself if you are in a battle within yourself.
All right, I'm going to pause you right there because we want to get to questions because they're already starting to send them right now, and I want to address them. But real quick,
I'm sorry.
I'm just
no. Everyone who's listening, I apologize.
No, you're good. Don't apologize because it's really good stuff. But what I do want to add before I answer the question is, like, if you agree with Taylor or disagree with Taylor, fine, right? Even do it for 3 months, right? What are you going to lose? Say he's completely out the lunge and he's full of shit, whatever, right? Do it for 3 months, and if it works out for you, hey, that's all the best, right? If not, it was only 3 months out of your life that you gave away, and I guarantee you didn't regress. So, all right, Taylor, on to the questions.
Yep. And the biggest thing that will derail my whole philosophy is the ego, which is why most people don't want to train that way, and that's fair. You can train however you want. This is me sharing my thoughts and philosophies that have really, like I said, this is very counterculture to every strength and conditioning book you'll ever read. And everyone out there, I'm sure people have never looked at strength training like a conversation.
No. All right. So Matthew C says, I'm having problems increasing my push-up reps / pull-ups. I'm 6'3" and lengthy. Trying to get my strength up. Nothing has been working so far, especially for pull-ups. Any advice would be appreciated.
Yeah. So the mysterious push-ups and pull-ups. So let's take a look at that. And obviously, I appreciate the question. My favorite thing is pull-ups. If anyone knows me from Special Warfare, I am very particular about them. And in fact, so let's think about this simply. Number one, when I ask most people, so remember how I said, if you caught any of what I said, that if you improve any rep max to a significant extent, not just improve it, to a significant extent, you've improved every rep max. When I ask most people who cannot get over 10, 14, 15, 20 pull-ups, I always want to get everyone to 20 pull-ups who's going through some type of selection course. It's just kind of like you're just shooting yourself in the foot if not. I guarantee if I said, show me your 1 rep max pull-up or chin-up, Obviously, I know pull-up would be more effective, but you're going to see me train a lot of chin-ups. It's because, like a back squat, you can do more with more weight in a chin-up. So I actually think I get more progress there. That's a kind of side story. People can direct message me that. If I ask most people, including you guys, say you wanted to get your pull-ups over the magical 20 to 25 to 30 strict, right? And I had you show me your 1 rep max, it's probably pretty weak. It might be 45 pounds. It might be whatever. I would actually spend more time trying to expand your max and raise your limits, but not by testing them. Because the heavier, think about this. If you can do, let's say your max 45 pounds. I think that's a pretty respectable, normal weight that I would see from a lot of people. They want to get their chest to bar. That's because their shoulders can't get there. Think about that. If I now can do 1 rep at 90 pounds, is my body weight max up?
Yes.
Yeah. Because we know you're doing grip training. If you're doing your carries, you're doing your grip training. Irrespective of some nervous system mistrust. So if your nervous system's not trusting you because you're just blowing it out and you're breaking curfew and you're grounded, you can't go out, you can't have fun because you're grounded, or a joint space issue, it should be that. Now, let's say you start trying to get your 1 rep max up, not by testing it, by expanding it, and you're not successful. Then it is actually a byproduct of energy systems, and you cannot produce energy, and you're probably getting venous occlusions, like we talked about in the Run podcast. So blood's getting trapped in the working muscle, you can't deliver oxygen, and then as oxygen bottoms out, you can no longer work. So actually, if you're not seeing progress, it might be a local limitation of muscular endurance. And that's, once again, by taking some of the philosophies from the Run podcast into that. So I would see about expanding your 1 rep max. And that sounds funny. So in the push-up, isn't that funny? If I said, what's your 1 rep max bench? Everyone knows it. What about your 1 rep max weighted ring push-up? No one knows it because they don't train it. So once again, Westside Barbell, who most people should know, I've got John Quint, my good friend. He's at Westside Barbell. They are adamant about doing banded and weighted push-ups to get better. Now, most people would benefit more from the rings because it's going to be easier on the shoulders and stuff like that. So I would start looking at doing ring push-ups and getting your max strength up, not your relative max. Because if I have a higher ceiling, I can fit a bigger Christmas tree in there. Christmas tree is relative strength, or the ability to work and work and work.
Yeah, I tell you what, if you've never done ring push-ups, they're a doozy.
But most people are just trying to push their limits. So if their limit's 40, go to 40 and they fail. You can't, if you're at the top of the mountain, there's nowhere to go. If your runway's too short, your plane can't take off. If I'm right next to a hurdle, I'm probably going to smack it. You need to back off. It's not about pushing your limits.
Yep.
Yep.
Senor Blanco. Yep. Effectiveness of the Stu Smith method. It's the main advice his developer gives for improving push-up and pull-ups to get past IFT standards. I'm not familiar with the Stu Smith method.
I've briefly heard inklings of Stu Smith. Number one, first, respect your developer. They are incredible people. Their experience is one of the reasons why I love working with this community. Trust your developer. If I have an opposing thought or philosophy, don't be that kid as well. No, stop. Once again, are there many philosophies that are different, competing? Oh yeah, just go to every Olympic training center around the world, and they will have different ways about going about business. So I'm going to answer that by saying respect your developer. They have lots of good experience. And also, if you're so worried about push-ups and pull-ups, you're forgetting the bigger picture. You're not going to get through on your pull-up strength, even though that will come. So trust your developer. And I feel so freaking awkward plugging this. This is not me personally. I've been working for a long time on building a website because everyone's been yelling at me saying, like, how do I train like you've talked about?
Where's your program?
I've been apprehensive of releasing it because, number one, like, it's so counterculture. Like, for instance, I just had someone the other week, and their strength workout took 4 minutes. and they're getting stronger, and they're like, I don't feel like I'm working that hard because their RPE is so low.
Just give the people
So
what they want.
their
Just give it
RPE
to
is
them.
like their RPE is like 70% less than it would be, and they're getting stronger than they ever have, and because it's about strength. I am building a website. It's in progress. Actually, when I'm done with this, I'm working on it. I, my first program on there, and this is so awkward. Shameless plug.
No,
Is the
plug it.
world's greatest chin-up program. I've worked on it 6 years. The pull-up and the chin-up have been one of my favorite exercises. I think I've been able to achieve a very respectable weighted chin-up, upwards of almost 200 pounds. I've been able to achieve one-arm pull-ups, and I've been able to hit a 40 body weight max. And so what I've done is I've put that together in a program that is based on these philosophies, that is designed to get your body weight max up and your absolute max up in a way that should take 15 minutes. And I think it's going to be good. But once again, please don't. This is not me trying to sell anything. It's just that could probably help.
No, awesome. I dig it. I'm looking forward to that coming out because I will definitely follow that. Wookie Potomamus, I think is what it is, is doing a
Internet old.
yeah, is doing a high number of reps the same as high number of sets. Say 3 reps of 25 or just 1 set of 75 at the same weight, say 30 to 40%.
Yeah, so once again, people are going to get caught up in the examples. And
Yeah.
I know that's a little bit unfair because you're going to have a bajillion DMs of people being like, well, what's an example? What's an example? For instance, so I think I can give this one away, even though always like I'm hesitant but let me give an example. I think that's fair, even though normally this is going to be for, like guys like you. So let's say I was going to progress my barbell squat. Okay. Let's say I wanted to increase my max. I just want to get it up for whatever reason. So let's say I was going to do 50 reps in a workout. 50 reps. Okay. So most people would just think about putting more weight on the bar, 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 yawn. That's the same. We can take 2 paths, same old shit or crazy new shit. I'm all about this. Ready? So if you take 50 reps, and let's say we start at like 10 sets to make this very simplistic. This is just an example. Let's say your max was 500 pounds. That'd be insane, but I'm doing easy math here. I would probably start you somewhere around like 200 pounds, and you do 10 sets of 5, or you'd have 10 sets to do 50 reps. Okay? You do that once a week. Every week, you're going to take away a set. So now, week 2, you have 9 sets to do 50. The weight does not change. Week 3, you have 8 sets to do 50. The weight does not change. Am I even close to my max?
No.
No. Am I progressing? Yes. Is my RPE increasing? Slightly, because we have to head towards the peak. I am saying you are heading towards the peak. You're not. People are going to misinterpret this and think you stay at 30% and you don't ever work hard. Remember, just because I'm saying relatively it's easier and you're not at your limits, that doesn't mean it's not hard. Most people, when they're training at 50%, think they're crushing it, right? If you're at your 10 rep max and you can do 3 more reps, you're not at your 10 rep max. So most people are misinterpreting easy or relatively easy or relative to how most people train as, oh, you're just sitting here, just chilling and smoking and doing no work. No, you are working and it's getting harder. So, but here's the problem. There's a problem with this, and this is where the magic comes in, and this is why it's not just do 25 sets of 3, because it takes expertise to know how to progress people or to minimize the threat response. As the intensity increases, we're getting closer to curfew. Okay? There is a lag in the nervous system. So when we start getting stronger, our body starts getting a little shy and timid and scared and nervous, and especially as we get over. There's a lag in the nervous system for about 4 to 5 weeks-ish. Westside Barbell thinks about 3 weeks. That's where their accommodating or undulating periodization comes from, right? Accommodating resistance, or the conjugate method. So there's a lag, which means strength is going up, you're feeling stronger, faster, better. But then after about 3 to 4 weeks, depends on the person, you're going to start to get a lag where the nervous system starts slowing up and says, wait a second, hold on now, slow up, slow up. And then 12 weeks later, slow down, 16 weeks, and now you're plateauing and you're struggling to put 10 more pounds on the bar with everything you've got, and your shoulder hurts and your knees are killing you. So after about 4 weeks, I'll give you guys this squat cycle for free. So after 4 weeks, you'd be at 7 sets and you'd be doing 50 reps. Then what you're going to do is the next week, you're going to go back up to 8. Because why? Because your nervous system's starting to not trust you. So in week 5, it'd be 50 reps in 10 sets, 50 reps in 9 sets, 8, 7. But then at that point, the nervous system's starting to catch on to that adapt or die response. And we've got to start to go up to 8. And then we go 7, 6, 5, up to 6, 5, 4. And eventually I'm doing 1 set of 50. And do you think that weight is anything to me?
No.
No, it's not even a warm-up weight. Am I building endurance? Yeah, I'm doing 1 set of 50 barbell squats. I have some people doing this at 75 reps. It's different. Everything's different. I have some people doing 75 reps at their former 85% max. And it feels relatively about the same, if not easier. People say it feels about 20% easier.
But you're saying you got to throw your CNS a bone every now and then.
Yeah, it's going to catch on because the closer you get to your limits, the more you're going to find your limits.
Yeah.
So, and remember, if every week I'm getting stronger, I'm probably training harder. So I'm probably stacking on my runs, my rucks, my swims, and all this is building because it's never happening by itself. We've got to be good at everything. So now imagine if I can do 50 sets of 1, I can do. Am I building strength or endurance? Yes or yes?
Yes.
Both. How about, am I building connective tissue? We said connective tissue takes long efforts over 2 minutes. Yes. Am I getting a slight aerobic effect now? Yeah.
Yes.
Because why? Because it's not occluding blood because I can do 50 reps with it unimpeded. So I'm now starting to get cardiovascular training effect. Do you think my nervous system trusts me? Yeah. It gave me 50 reps with 1 set.
Yeah, it likes you now. You're actually treating it well.
It's not a linear, like this has some complexity to it, which is where hopefully my expertise and experience. And it's not as simple as it seems, because if not, everyone could just listen to this podcast and then replace all the 15 years and tens of thousands of sessions of experience of failure and success. And this is a philosophy that's developed over a long time. And it still won't make sense after today, but that's okay. When people go to calculus class on day 1, they don't understand it. This is calculus day 1.
Cool. Well, we'll move on to another question, and I won't John Adams wrote this, but several other people have written this because there are folks that are heading off to basic training, and they're not necessarily going to get access to, weights and stuff like that. Yep. So what they're kind of asking is, hey, what are some good body weight exercises to help improve their strength and their runs?
Ready? Yeah, cool. I love these questions, and you can tell I want to answer them completely because I've seen a lot of, Q&As where people kind of just say 2 seconds, and, quick thoughts are good, but I want people to feel their question has been answered, even though we have limited time. Okay, so here's an example. Here's another example about how we think I'm only concerned with progress. I don't care what my max is. Ask me what my max chin-up is. I don't know. I don't care. What's my max deadlift? I don't know. I don't care. What's my fastest mile? I don't know. I don't care. My only concern is progress. That's my only concern. So let's think about pull-up, okay? And I've had a few people experiment with this. So here's the second one, because now people can get some practical ones. But remember, it's not as simple as you do this 1 cycle or set and then you magically are, fixed. So most people would just do more pull-ups and more pull-ups and more sets and more failure and more struggle. And eventually they force Sally's house with a gun, you're going to get the milk. You're going to get it until the cops show up. Or she calls the cops. So imagine I do a pull-up in week 1 and I test it. You have to have some starting point, right? You have to test probably the first day. Let's say I can do a pull-up and I can go 10 seconds up, 10 seconds at the top, and 10 seconds down. So the rep takes 30 seconds. Okay?
Okay.
Week 1, you could do 1 pull-up a day. And let's start off at a 10-second pull-up. So you go up for 3, hold for 4 at the top, down for 3. And you do that for 1 week. And then every week you make the pull-up take longer. And then a year later, you've only done 5 pull-ups a week. But where's your grip strength at?
That's silly.
So I've got into a 10-minute pull-up before. I just don't show this stuff because most people like
You're just sitting there like this.
So no, I'm talking like 10 minutes to get up, hold, and down.
Ooh.
So you're continuous. You're either moving or pausing at different points on the way up. You get a lot of time at the top, and then on the way down. You get the most on the way down. No one's ever thought maybe I make the
that's
exercise,
gnarly.
maybe I make the exercise take longer. Have you ever tried doing a 5-minute pull-up where you do 2 minutes up, 1 minute at the top, 2 minutes down? No, because the only measure of progress is there more weight on a barbell?
That just
Now,
sounds.
If I can take 5 minutes to do one pull-up, how many can I do when I'm just doing one set and repping? A lot. Why? Because I own every millimeter of that pull-up. Now, is that a magic cure for everyone? No. If I give 100 people the same program, some get great results, some get good results, some get average results, some don't get results, because we're not all the same size fit all, and everyone's got different experiences, backgrounds, limitations, preferences, and all this. But have you ever thought about strength that way? Negative.
No.
Have you ever thought about I've written programs before where I have someone saying you're only doing 5 pull-ups in a week, and they were like, are you literally batshit insane? But
the answer is yes, but you still might be right.
12 weeks later, they've only done 5 reps a week, and they're beating, and they're crushing everything, right? Because it's no longer the measure of success is failure, it's progress, right? And progress is best made in the absence of limits. Because if I don't know my limits, I don't have limits. If I find my limits, I find them. And remember, this is not about the pool. This is not about a long ruck. This is not about selection. We are talking about the external feat and phenomena of strength. Like someone pressing their own body weight overhead, like if I weigh 180 pounds doing a barbell press at 180, that's a feat of strength, right? Like one of the feats of strength I was able to accomplish, if you know kettlebells, the Beast Tamer Challenge. You have to do a press, single arm press, pistol squat, and pull up at 106 pounds. And you have 5 minutes to do each lift. I'm not strong by most people's definitions, and I throw that out there as a humble brag, I'm sure some people call it, but to let people know that I'm not just spitting fire without something to back it up, because I practice what I preach and I know what I teach, and it's one of those things where some people will be like, wow, he's so smart, but then they're like, I don't see him bench pressing. Other people will say, wow, he's so strong, but then right? So I want to prove to people through my actions, not my words, and not a study. When people say, where's the study for this? I say, show me what you've achieved physically. Show me, and then if it's not you, show me what your clients or the people you train have. And I will gladly show the people I've trained getting success off this method.
All right. So, like I said, I got a heart out. So I've got about 9 minutes. But there's a really good question on here that I want to address, and then we'll have you answer it, and then we got to roll.
Yeah. Sure.
But apparently somebody's been checking out your YouTube videos because I've seen this a couple times. But what's the benefits of the Starch squat on your YouTube video?
The Starch what?
Squat.
Oh, yeah. So, okay, awesome. So that, number one, the fact that I named an exercise after myself is probably a big mistake. It's a big mistake because, just like anything, everything, there's nothing new under the sun. That's straight out of Ecclesiastes, and stuff like that. But it's just one of those things where I didn't know what to call it. And it was just like one word. I was just like, whatever, my name. And then I was like, hopefully 50 years from now, people will be like, oh, it was totally him. But I bet you it's been done 20 million times. So when it comes to training muscles like the glutes, let's pick the glutes. When everyone goes to train the glutes, they do the banded like glute exercises. So they're taking their hip into abduction, external rotation, or extension. You guys know the banded glute walks?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me because muscles respond when they're eccentrically loaded. So my glute is responsible for abduction, AB, extension, and external rotation. So most people are trying to train their glutes by starting their hip at neutral and working towards short. That doesn't make any sense. What happens if I take a rubber band and then I shorten it? There's no stretch and there's no contraction. What happens if I take a rubber band and stretch as far as humanly possible? Bam. So if I want to train my glutes, I'm not going to go into extension, external rotation, and abduction like every glute exercise you see on the planet. You know, the whole take your feet out wide, knees out to get glutes. That makes no sense. I want to take my hip into flexion, internal rotation, and adduction, because then I put the glute in its biggest stretch, and then it's going to contract harder. So if you want to train your glutes, you actually need to go into internal rotation, flexion, and adduction. So the goal of that exercise is, number one, it's a display of mobility, but it's actually to get the glute. And then I just make it crazy and cool, and sometimes I'll kick my leg out into what's called the dragon pistol. It's a variation of pistol squat. It's kind of looks cool, and people are like, "Oh, shoot, this guy balls." Yeah, that's it. Yep.
All right. No, that's great. And I think now's a good time to end it. So appreciate everybody.
Sorry, everyone. You're going to be confused for the next
No,
10 years.
Maybe, but I don't think so. I think you articulated it very, very well. And people have already been asking if you'll come on again and strictly do a live, but strictly do a Q&A. So obviously we've got to set that up. So we'll plug it in. It might be a couple weeks from now, but we'll plug it in and go from there. So really appreciate you coming on. I know that if you guys aren't tracking, when you end this, there's going to be a Trent and Aaron show that just got published. So it's they're waiting for you. So that should be fun for you guys to watch. And then again, check out Taylor Starch, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's at Taylor_Starch. Is that right?
Just Taylor Starch together.
Or just Taylor Starch together. So check them out, give them a follow, and don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, and leave us a review on. Well, you can't leave a review on Spotify, but you can put some stars on Spotify and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Appreciate everybody joining. Taylor, awesome to have you again.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks, brother.
Oh, you got to say goodbye.
Yeah. Think about it.
All right, later, everybody.
That's going to break the internet.
Later, homie.
It's over.
All right, that's it. All right, fellas.